Hi, this is Jeff Nyquist with another edition of Friends and Enemies with my co host Alex Benesch in Germany. I'm in the United States, and we're going to talk today about anti Semitism, the history of Europe, and of course, some of the recent developments in our culture, uh, the emergence of the disclosure UFO UAP movement with Steven Spielberg's film coming out in a matter of days now. Maybe by the time this gets out, it'll be a day away, maybe, or a couple days away. Um, and of course, Alex, you've got some points about some other movies coming out and political correctness and how they're going to twist the past. What do you got for us?
Okay, so first of all, I actually wanted to do a show with me being in Greece. To be more precise, the island of Crete. So, but then I had my notes and just the internet connection was just horrendously bad and unreliable, even in the year 2026. Even a very nice resort. So I just thought, let me just postpone this, okay? So I wrote a bunch of stuff. This is actually for a new book or an audiobook. And it's supposed to map the leadership of the United States of America. So shortly before the revolution, then during the revolution, after the revolution, and then just continuously going on. And so this is supposed to close some gaps in of my previous work, because it's massively fascinating to see a nation like this and elites like this, and when you're writing something like this, sitting on the island of Crete, and you're doing the tourist thing, right? I mean, you try to have a relaxing environment so you can write in peace, but you also take the troubles of driving across the mountains, this pretty dangerous road, because we just picked the wrong route, not the safe one. So you drive across the island to get to a specific beach or a specific place, a specific museum, or the remains of the old Minoan civilization, which is older than the Greek Empire or the Macedonians that came later. So one of the first real powerful full-fledged civilizations, I think, in Europe, that they call it. So long before any other structure that was it could even come close to that, right? So they had the whole thing. They had the trade, the palaces, the structures, the everything, right? Taxes, right? We looked at some of these stone tablets, like the ancient or even pre-ancient IRS. So they had these little clay tablets, meticulously writing up the data on people paying their taxes, right? On this island. So so I'm mapping the American elites, and also the the difficulties of running a structure like this, like the United States of America, running it, defending it against these competitors who were fierce, like the French were really fierce, the Spanish, they were all pretty hardcore. You want to try something new, and you had to be tough. You had to be very assertive. You had to look at expansion. But there's sort of this idea of you try to create some sort of a net profit of morality. You're trying to improve things, and that's the toughest thing to do, right? Because some people, even in the American leadership, they were just focused on stability, defending, expansion, and that's the end of it, right? And this can become very isolating mindset, and this can lead to some very dark alleys. Same as we saw in ancient Greece, with some of the mystery cults and some of the crazy stuff. There's always going to be these pockets of very problematic people in their isolation, following mystery cults or whatever, and just they're just hyper focused on their goals and their desires, whereas other people in leadership, other people they're trying to do this find the perfect compromise. They're trying to find the perfect balance of safety and trying to improve things for people and just get out of this cycle of misery. I mean, this Minoan civilization, if I remember correctly from the tour that we got, they did very well until I think what was it? What was it? An earthquake or I think it was a big earthquake and some sort of seismic activity, and that was a huge problem. That was kind of like the end of that civilization. So and others they came and went, rose up and failed, and future generations or future empires and future civilizations, they've tried to study the old ones, right, and figured out how did it go so wrong or why did they fail. And it's like now we can look back at the earliest phase of the United States of America, and we figure out how did it develop, how do we get to this place now. It's not some Jewish conspiracy. It was very, very late, and we'll get to that in the course of the show. It was very, very late in a very established, very meticulous system in America when they started to introduce some of these German Jewish bankers, and they let them do some of the more riskier endeavors, stuff that wasn't really popular, like consumer stores and other ideas that are now very common, but they were thought of as risky investments. And so within this very established framework, generation by generation, they were allowing some of these German Jewish guys to be integrated, right? And this nowadays has been misconstrued into this gargantuan Jewish mega conspiracy, as if they had magic powers, and of course that meta conspiracy idea was built on top of it, whereas Jews wreck all or most of the classic empires. Wrecking Rome, they caused the end of Rome, they caused the end of the French monarchy, they caused the end of the Russian monarchy, they caused the end of the German monarchy, and blah 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 blah. So this is the dumbest thing. If you want to understand stability, you have to understand why empires succeeded and why they failed. And this thing about Jews being the single root cause, and it's like the dumbest thing ever. And it's like the scams that people run with health topics. They offer you one product and they say, well, there's one root cause of all your life's problems and all your health problems. It's just this one root cause, and I have this one solution for it, and it's going to fix everything. And of course, your health is way more complicated than that. So, yeah, I wanted to do a show on Crete. Would have been really, really fun to do. And when we landed on this island, I thought it looked like California. I thought it looked like a bit like California, had a bit of an Italian vibe, but not too much, and sometimes it looked a bit like Afghanistan. So that was the first impression that I got. And when you drive through this island towards your destination, you get a bit of a more modern Latino vibe, because that's something that you can find in these warmer countries. It's like some typical Latino vibe, but there's something distinctly Greek and unique about it. And you can tell the poverty, of course, because everybody wants to work for the government. You see, that doesn't work. Everybody wants to work for the government. Ultimately, nothing works, and there's quite a bit of poverty. I mean, you saw some of the cars that you see. There's nicer cars in Afghanistan. There's nicer cars sometimes in other places in the world, and like some of these people live. That's pretty miserable. And still, they rely on tourism. They rely on people with more money, with disposable income, to go there and just enjoy that country. Yeah, there's a new movie coming out, which is going to be like a cultural phenomenon, probably in a bad way. It's the Odyssey. It's an Odyssey movie by Christopher Nolan. Um, So yeah, people have been talking about this a lot, conservatives and leftists and all of that. But before I get into that, maybe we should spend a few words on why the empire of that Alexander the Great had built, why it failed, or why it probably failed, because we don't
Well,
have the perfect view.
we have to
It was not
remember.
Jews, right? The Jews didn't destroy the empire of Alexander the Great, did they?
No, not at all. Well, you see, when Alexander the Great came around, Greece had already spent itself culturally. Greece was already past its golden age, so to speak, which was the age of Athens and Sparta, the age that ended in the tragedy of the Peloponnesian Wars. You could say that Greece, imagine Greece as Europe. This is an analogy people have. Europe had this great civilization, and then world wars came in the 20th century and kind of wrecked European civilization, right? Demoralized it. Well, Greece went through the same thing. You had, when you read Herodotus's histories is a celebration of the greatness of Greece. And of course, he ends the story about repelling the Persian invasions, right? So the battle of Thermopylae, the battle of the big naval battle that happened in the second invasion, and of course of Greece. Well, actually, the first invasion was Marathon, the Battle of Marathon, where the Athenian hoplites stopped the Persian horde, and then in the second invasion, it was the Spartans in the pass Thermopylae that they made a movie, a funny kind of cartoonish movie about that was rather popular here. But it was kind of cartoonish, but it was kind of fun. I think it was based on a comic book, actually, a comic book version of the Battle of Thermopylae. But Herodotus covered these tremendous events, which showed the greatness of Athens and Sparta both. And what happens is that Sparta and Athens, in their greatness, Athens develops this alliance of all these overseas, all the Greek islands of the Aegean and beyond. And Sparta has the land locked countries. Of course, Corinth is the rival to Athenian commercial power, and the Athenians developed a colony on the opening of that part of Greece that Corinth goes out to the sea, and of course to block Corinthian trade, and it evolves into the Sparta had its league, the Peloponnesian League, I think it was called, and the Delian League was the alliance of the Athenians, and they ended up in a 30-year war with a little bit of a break in between, and it ended. Athens lost the war, and of course they had the tyranny of the 30 tyrants imposed with the Spartan garrison, and it was I think 5 years after that garrison was expelled, and Athens restored its democracy. That the Athenian democracy put Socrates to death, even though he was not to blame for anything. They killed him. And so Greece had a period where Spartan power was eclipsed by the Thebans. Spartans suffered so many casualties in a defeat to the Thebans that the Thebans then were running loose, and the civil wars just continued until finally Alexander the Great's father, Philip of Macedon, basically conquered and imposed his own league on all the Greek societies by conquest. And they were all forced under him. And there had been some Greek philosophers or rhetoricians who had argued that Greece should unite and invade Persia. Rather than suffering these two Persian invasions, we should be the ones invading. And of course, the Athenians had always raided into Egypt and into the Persian coast. They had been constantly attacking Persia. Of course, Persia got its revenge in helping Sparta defeat Athens at the end of the Peloponnesian War. But the idea was, let's unite Greece and go after Persia. And this is what Alexander the Great did. But by that time, the Macedonians were the country hicks of the Greek world.
Yeah.
They weren't, some even didn't think they were real Greeks. They're not real Greeks. They weren't part of the city-state system. They were up there in the far north. But they had the best cavalry in the world at the time, better than even the Persian cavalry, which had been better previously. They had really good cavalry, and this Macedonian phalanx that they had turned a hoplite into this unbreakable formation. They said that the Macedonian phalanx could not be broken from the front. So Alexander the Great invaded Persia. He won one battle after another until he finally conquered all of Persia, liberated Egypt, of course, and the Jews who were underneath Persian rule. Of course, they didn't really mind Persian rule because the Persians had liberated them from the Babylonian captivity. But the Greeks then built the city of Alexandria in Egypt, which was sort of a Greek center of learning in Egypt. And one of Philip's generals became the pharaoh, right? So when Alexander the Great died at the age of like 33 or 34,
32.
Yeah,
Too young,
32,
very
whatever it
young,
was.
very young.
Very young. He died probably of being poisoned. Well, one rumor that I think it's in Plutarch's Life of Alexander the Great, that the rumor was that that Aristotle had poisoned Alexander the Great because Alexander had murdered Aristotle's favorite nephew, who'd come to advise him and chastise him for behaving like an Oriental despot. So you had all these Macedonian generals becoming kings, the Diadochi, right? Who were ruling. One ruled over Babylon, another one ruled over Egypt, another one ruled over Asia Minor, and you had these, and they all warred with each other, and they ultimately got swept aside by Rome in the end. Antiochus the Great was defeated by Scipio Asiaticus, Scipio Africanus's brother, and blah, blah, blah. Greece was no more. But what was interesting in this period of senescence, when Greece had basically been so strong and had conquered the East, and they were like this incredible colonizers that had taken over the whole Eastern Mediterranean and all the way to India. Alexander the Great had marched all the way to India. They stopped having kids. So they lived for themselves. They became rather hedonistic in their philosophy. And so you have Polybius, the famous Greek historian of the rise of the Roman Empire, saying, and suddenly there was a dearth of children in Greece. Mm-hmm. And they literally, by the time the Romans come in there to save them, the Greeks can't raise armies anymore. Before that, they suffer a corruption where, when you try to raise an army, the general steals the money, right?
Yeah.
This is corruption. So the Greeks had become corrupt, slack in their morals, untruthful. The Romans gave them a terrible reputation, for homosexuality and bad morals, dishonesty. If you said somebody had Greek morals, in the during the period of the rise of Rome, you were really insulting them. And Polybius said it was the Roman, puritanical religious vein that they kept their oaths, and they revered the gods, and they didn't lie, and they didn't cheat, and they didn't steal. That's why the Romans took over the world. That was Polybius's version. And of course, he goes into the Roman constitution, why it was better than it was sort of modeled on the Spartan constitution, but that it was Athenian democracy that was this corrupting force. And people don't realize this. In the ancient world, democracy had a bad name. Aristotle called it the worst form of government. It was the system that had murdered Socrates. So people get this all wrong. So Greece sort of was the first modern place and suffered a modern, and of course, later Roman historians said that the Greeks had infected Rome with their corruption, so that Rome itself also then became corrupt. But that's the story of Greece. And so there were, I think if you go to Gustav Le Bon, he says the modern Greeks are not even descendant. The modern Greeks are not descendants of the Greeks. They're descendants of a Slavic people who filled up the needed labor force.
Well, I noticed that. But when you say that,
yeah.
now when you say that, we for fun giggles, anytime we're vacationing somewhere with the family, right? We just watch some local TV, in that language. Sometimes they have subtitles or not, or somebody speaks in the family speaks that particular language, right? So we watch a few television stations, Greek television stations, and I said it almost sounds like Russian. I mean, the language they speak now, it sounds a bit Slavic. It does sound like it's just so close. I mean, the way it sounds to Russian or
Well, of
Slavic
course, ancient
languages.
Greek and modern Greek are not the same language.
Yeah.
They're related, but they're not the same. Um, and so I think that genetically, there's more Greeks in Asia Minor, where Turkey is now, and maybe in some of the islands, but in Greece itself. And this was an argument that Gustav Le Bon made. But the Greeks, they basically, I mean, Plutarch was a Greek writer in the second century AD, who wrote his famous Parallel Lives and stuff. He and a couple others were the last of the Greek culture and writers. And of course, the Romans, Greek was the language of the Eastern Roman Empire. And of course, all the classics of Greek literature became the basis that the Romans based their literature on. They just copied the Greeks. Even the Aeneid, the great poem celebrating the legitimacy of Rome as the ruler of the Mediterranean, was basically just, they stole a lot of the themes from Greek literature, from the Iliad and the Odyssey. They just stole from that. So basically, the founder of Rome was someone who escaped from Troy, right?
And it's like when you're there, there's kind of that Mediterranean vibe. It's close to Italy. It's very Italian. And so when you walk around some of these old castles or these structures that they've built, these fortresses or stone fortresses that they've built along the coastline, you do get the sense of, it kind of makes sense. If you can't continue on here, you just go to Italy, which is kind of similar, and then you just move on. Right? This is like seemed like a very natural transition. So it's like when you talk about these problems that brought down Greece, I mean, later rulers or later elites, I mean, they've tried different things to prevent the same problems and prevent the same decline. And one of the things that was tried, especially in the Soviet realm, was to have this incredible centralization of power, and to have this maniacal surveillance of leadership people. So even when you rose to great heights of power in the Soviet system, you could be removed tomorrow. If there's any hint of disloyalty or not going with the plan or just having a different opinion and talking to others about it, you could be gone. And it's like the same thing we see with the Putin regime nowadays, when there was internal disagreement about attacking Ukraine or continuing the war, and then all these Russians started dying. Another guy fell out of a window, another guy died after a cup of tea, another guy fell out of a window, another guy had a heart attack. So it's like you just have massive surveillance and a massive chilling effect, a terrorizing effect, to maintain some sort of coherence. But
you have
that
an
doesn't work
autocratic
either.
state. Yeah. I mean, the Roman Empire tried to, as the morals fell away, there's a famous writing of Tacitus, which is really kind of his recollection of being a 13, 14-year-old boy sitting with all these Roman lawyers around the time of just after the fall of Nero, talking about how Rome had changed over the previous 100 years since the time of Julius Caesar. And they said, the women don't want to raise their kids anymore. They kind of talked about a kind of a feminism for the upper class, whereas the Roman mothers were all involved in the education of their sons, where then they left their children to be raised by slaves, this kind of thing. And it was fascinating that entertainment culture took over. like we see here in the United States, and also I think to some extent in Europe, but here in America, entertainment culture is so huge. They said that at the time of, and we can relate this to it's very similar to what uh, Neil Postman wrote in Amusing Ourselves to Death, is that when we had the Lincoln Douglas debates, where farmers and townsmen would come from miles around to spend a day listening to Douglas and Lincoln debate, right? And it would be hours and hours of debate with breaks in between for lemonade and whatnot and refreshments. But the same thing with Cicero would give these speeches that would last hours, and other Roman statesmen, they would speak for hours, and the public would patiently listen, and they would be enthralled by it. But by the time you get to the age of Nero, the lawyers said if you spoke in front of a judge for more than 10 minutes, it was like you were just cut off and told to shut up and sit down, because even the judges wouldn't listen that long. The attention span had been shrunk down, and they talked about Pompey's theater was the first one that got snuck inside the city limits past the censors. And so then it went from the theaters got expanded, and entertainment then expanded. And then you have the Circus Maximus becoming this massive entertainment bred in circuses. And so people only wanted to be entertained. And of course, the bloodier and the more massive, man versus man, and then it was woman versus dwarf, and dwarf versus giraffe, this kind of thing. Yeah. It got weirder and weirder.
What would happen if we pitch this against that, or let's try something else out?
Right. Yeah. Oh, they filled the forum with water. They built a canal from the Tiber, filled it with water, and had a pitched sea battle in the Colosseum. I'm sorry, in the Colosseum. So, I mean, they would do this thing, these gladiatorial contests and stuff, and people just were enthralled by it. And of course, this was just starting to take off at the time of Cicero. It was starting to become bad, but it had not corrupted. People actually had the leisure for study. They said, the education that Caesar got from his mother and Cicero was famous for their erudition and their Greek learning and so on. But by the time you get to Nero, again, it was all about entertainment. And so the substance of the leaders they had no real intellectual substance. I mean, we can see this now with our leaders in the West. So this pattern from Greece degenerated, you could say Socrates was sort of a warning cry about the degeneration of Greece. And this is the point that some of the better authors on Plato and Socrates point out, that Socrates was saying, look, and Plato wrote it out more explicitly, everybody's got these opinions, and you've got these rhetoricians, these sophists running around, and their whole thing is we can bend the truth any which way we want. Right. Mm-hmm. And we can create a new reality by getting inside people's heads and using words to manipulate them. And this was just the big thrill of it all, was to manipulate people through words. And so all of these rhetoricians were teaching people how to do this, how to speak, right? And it was Cicero, the Roman, who said, no, you want to tell the truth, right? And Cicero, although he was famous for his manipulations, really did revere the truth, because it was a Roman thing, a Roman inheritance. But the Greeks, no. And Socrates was the guy saying, hey, guys, it's about the truth. It's about being honest. And of course, they made him drink the hemlock. Well, you see, in modernity, it's worse. It's worse because we don't just have a media and rhetoricians that bend the truth. Our people actually bend reality. They create a completely fake reality. Mm-hmm. This is what these modern ideologies, they never had something equivalent to an ideology like we have in modernity, political ideologies.
Yeah, once you lie about mechanisms, and then you lie about all kinds of mechanisms, or you lie about enough mechanisms, and you claim these mechanisms explain everything. I mean, it's just like, this is what communism did. So they identified this one, or this group of root cause the root causes of evil, private property and just a classic family and owning things and sharing and trading things and investing in things. So this was like the single gimmicky root cause of all evil, and thus if we destroy all that, we change all that, we can fix evil and we can fix everything, and everybody will have stuff and be happy. It's like now. It's interesting to see Hollywood coming out at all. Hollywood coming out at all with this new movie, The Odyssey, by Christopher Nolan. I mean,
Now, you might want to tell people you got the camera on me continuously.
Yeah,
We're not seeing you, but
So-
you might mention what the Odyssey is about.
Yeah. I have notes on that. Now it's one of the most famous stories of all time. It's like the
It's
archetype.
Homer. It follows the
Grand-
Iliad, which is about the siege of Troy, and it's after
Yeah.
the siege of Troy, after 10-year siege, and of course Odysseus is the great. He's the foxy general. He's the Greek general who has all the tricks. He
Yeah,
created the
smart.
Trojan horse.
He's smart.
Right?
Yeah, he's
He's
not
smart
just
when he made
he's
the
not just a
Trojan
buff
horse.
warrior. He's not just like the
Right.
the brawny guy. He's got it all, right?
He's a cunning one, and what is his wife Penelope's been waiting for it for 10 years, and she's got all these other suitors, and
Yeah.
he's trying to get back to her, but there's all these things in the way of him getting home.
Yeah, it's got everything. It's got the heroics, the smartness, the adventure, the temptations, the people making these choices, and then they have to face the consequences of these choices. So it's one of the all-time great stories, right? So but it's considered to be something that academics enjoy, and why would Hollywood make a movie about this? So people got immediately suspicious about that, right? And for good reason, because in this woke Hollywood phase, in this woke Hollywood, they these studios and they would take a franchise, or it would take a classic story. They could be a Grimm's fairy tale. They did some of these new Disney fairy tale movies, stories they've told before, but now they changed the stories, and now
Make them politically correct. Yes.
Well, the female character, they don't really end up with the guy, the prince. There's no romance story.
Snow White is the tranny.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those. I talked to my kids about that, and they were irritated as well. It's like, well, okay, I mean, why do we have to be? Why is this supposed to feel like a weird school? Why do they want to teach me some weird lesson about it's kind of bad to end up with a guy and view that as a great goal.
Well, they don't want you to be a bigot. They don't want you to be a bigot, right?
So
Isn't that the idea?
you can take one of the oldest fairy tales, right, or the oldest common fairy tales, stories that people know, and change it into the message, the woke message, and so then they used existing franchises, like Star Wars, like everything, and then they change it. And now they announced this movie, The Odyssey. So automatically the assumption is they're going to change the story, or they're going to, misconstrue the story or whatever. So we're not exactly sure yet, because the world is changing. We've seen some classic movies coming out and being very successful, like Top Gun Maverick, which was a huge commercial and cultural success. It was like a classic hero story. The United States, U.S. pilots defeating an enemy, going above and beyond. So there's also that. So we're not really sure yet what the Odyssey movie is going to be. Will it be more like another woke misconstruction, or is there a cultural political shift because of the global security situation that we're in? But the choice of Christopher Nolan, I found, was really concerning. Now he's considered to be very talented. He made Interstellar, which is a grand movie, but had these messages in it. We bad capitalist humans destroy planet through global warming or whatever. So we destroy the planet. Now we need a new one. Either we need to find a new planet to settle on, or we need to figure out this maniacally complicated mathematical calculation to fix Earth. And so this was like a movie with, against a backdrop of, global warming, and we ruined the planet. They would not say it out loud, but they put it into the imagery, and encoded like that. So then Christopher Nolan he did the Oppenheimer movie, and we did I think a whole episode on that. He takes a story about an atomic scientist, and there were many of them, and some of them had a Jewish background, and some of them, like some of them, like Klaus Fuchs, became the worst traitors ever. Because his family, I think his sister was a communist, other people in the family were communists, and the communists, they convinced him, look, we're the best friends of the Jews, these Westerners, they always betray you, and communism defeated the Nazis, blah blah blah. So you work for us, just sell us the atomic secrets.
Well, Robert Oppenheimer was Jewish.
Yeah. So then, it was at the time when Klaus Fuchs got busted, it was a huge problem, and there were, of course, investigations and other atomic scientists that had, fallen through the cracks. They were re-examined, and Oppenheimer, he lost his security clearance, and that was just there was a choice that was made. He did have communist contacts. He did have weird ideas, and just like Albert Einstein, also Jewish background, very, very capable physicist, but Einstein had communist leanings. He was getting into topics he was not really familiar with.
He wrote a book. He wrote a political book, which I read in college, which was praising socialism and for peace and everything. And
so they wouldn't let him.
They
wouldn't let him work on nukes, right? They wouldn't let Albert Einstein really work on a nuclear program for that. So this is just common sense. Now, when Oppenheimer lost his clearance, there were these hearings, these investigations, and blah blah blah. So Oppenheimer was deranged. I mean, they put that one thing in the Oppenheimer movie when he tries to poison his teacher, his professor, with a poisoned apple. And they did put it in the movie, but if you actually read the book that this movie was based on, the episode was way more severe, and it took like
Oppenheimer might have been a sociopath.
Yeah, a crazy guy. So his father, I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. I think his father was influential, so he kind of smoothed things over and said, "Well, my son is under a lot of stress," and he was just, I don't know, just make it all. We'll make it work out. But it just goes so far. Eventually, they revoked his clearance.
I was surprised that someone like Leslie Graves would have put up with someone like Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and so then this book comes out first, and the movie then was based on that book, and it was a terrible book. I read it and I thought that why would they frame Oppenheimer, or Oppie as people call him? Why would they frame Oppie as the poor little victim of a quasi-fascist American system, and then it was just like this just doesn't work for me, and it's not reality.
It doesn't work, especially since the U.S. was just fighting fascism. It doesn't.
Yeah, and in the movie, they this is one scene I just remember that they had this military, I think this military or government guy from U.S. government. He's talking to Oppenheimer, or he's in the same room with Oppenheimer, and they try to make this American guy to be like really demonic and super blue eyes, like full on Nazi style vibe. And so I thought, okay, so they take literally the worst book on Oppenheimer, and they make a movie based on that book, and the movie was boring. So now,
you thought the movie was boring?
It was very boring. It was just 3 hours of talk. Then the actual detonation of the bomb. I think they screwed that up too. They had like some I think it was practical, some like practical visual effects that were just abstract, and you just didn't get a real idea of what the detonation was of that bomb. I mean, they could have done different effects, different shots. I mean, first of all, you kind of a more closer or medium shot where you can actually see the size of the blast, the immediate blast radius. But you could also have like a shot from a far distance to see that this is was just a bomb. This was not like one of the later bombs. It's not gonna destroy the atmosphere. It's not gonna destroy the Earth. It's not gonna cause Armageddon. It's a really big firecracker. It's it's terrifying, but it's just a bomb, and let's just stay reasonable about it. It doesn't change everything. So they even screwed up that. So there was no payoff. There was zero payoff in the movie, and it was all just this. Yeah, we're the good leftists, and we're just fighting the bad right-wing America, and it's like this horrendous garbage. And it wasn't really. They didn't really make even a big deal out of the Soviet Union or why there wasn't a serious incentive to make nuclear bombs. But so now the Odyssey. There's been talk about the source material. They picked a newer translation.
Really? Do you know the name of the translator that they picked for the?
Yes, this was. Hang on, it's here. So Nolan has praised Emily Wilson's 2017 translation. And Wilson's version is associated with a feminist / class conscious reading of how do you pronounce that in English? Homer. What would be the correct one? I think you're on mute.
Homeric.
Homer. Yeah. So
Homeric.
Because I could pronounce it correctly in German, but I wasn't so sure about the English. Yeah. The English one here. So Nolan cited Wilson's opening. Tell me about a complicated man as important to how he thinks about Odysseus. So Nolan has cited and praised Wilson's translation, so we're not sure if but it probably goes in that direction. So I mean, obviously Emily Wilson cannot stray too far because it's supposed to be a translation, and language translation is either correct or it's not correct. There's a certain room of interpretation, but there's only so much she can do. But when we hear about this, like feminism and class conscious, it just goes into a goes into a certain direction. So her style is modern.
She is the first female translator of.
So her style is described as more modern and plain. Older translations often sound grand, archaic, and heroic. Sing to me of the man, muse the man of twists and turns. So it's twists and turns. It's like it's complicated, dude. It's complicated what they did, but then she takes that too much in a literal sense. And Wilson begins, "Tell me about a complicated man." But wait, twists and turns, that means all kinds of different things. It's like, that's not, tell me about a complicated man. It's like she's putting her own thing into this, right? Polytropos means many-turned, resourceful, adaptable, shifty. But when this gets turned into, well, tell me about a complicated man, it's like there's almost an immediate negative connotation about this. Also, Wilson foregrounds slavery. Earlier translators often rendered enslaved women as maids, or they talked about maids, servants. Sometimes they added insults against women.
I think the point on about her translation is that she didn't sugarcoat it. I think in the 19th century they used bombastic language in their translations. It's very. I don't think I've read hers. I read a more modern one that about 15 years ago of the Iliad. But it's very different from the versions of it that you read that were done in the in earlier centuries, where they have a lot of bombast, and they would sugarcoat to make, in our conception of the heroic, when he kills slave girls, I think it is, if they refer to them just as girls, they make it, or whores, I think, or something like that. Then they make it sound okay that he killed them, right? That Odysseus, because I think they slept with his boys, right? His sailors, his troops. Um, so I think that her translation might have some merits, but it
Yeah, but
is
why is she doing this? Why
it
is she?
is to show the harshness of the patriarchy, is one of the things. So what we might see is Odysseus might not appear so heroic. That is, the stark patriarchy of the Greek age might be portrayed. In that case, it might be more authentic. And people might just like the movie Patton, that was supposed to kind of be a dig on Patton, and everybody loved it and they admired Patton. It might end up
Okay, yeah,
being the same
okay, we
kind of
like
thing. It's
Patton.
like, hey, like, we want that kind of manhood again. Yeah, wow, that guy was something else. You got to be careful what you wish for, lady feminists. But yes, it's the world is harsh, and masculinity has this side to it because this is part of the real world. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting. I ought to get her translation because I've read a couple different translations of it, and it is a fascinating work. I guess in Greek it's unparalleled, the language. Ancient Greek, they say it's the greatest language of all. English is the second greatest language after ancient Greek for expressing things. But ancient Greek, the way it works, they had such a rich vocabulary, they could precisely express anything. Like they've got 5 different words for love, right? Because
Hmm.
not all love is the same thing. We in English, we just have one word for it, right? So they have different kinds. So that's just one example of how precise Greek can be. So a huge vocabulary in ancient Greek, um, but not to be compared with Latin or English. Also, I think it has the largest vocabulary of the modern languages. Maybe Portuguese has a similarly large vocabulary, but languages that have adopted parts of other languages, like English and Portuguese, are modern attempts to equivalent. I don't know what the background of the Greek language is. Maybe nobody knows how it formed, but it was kind of a miracle of language that allowed science and philosophy to develop in advance in ways that are hard to imagine. If you don't have a word for something, you can't express it, you can't describe it, you can't go into it. And of course, the Iliad and the Odyssey are two tremendous works that are like that. This is like the Bible for the Jews and the Christians. This is what the Bible was for the ancient Greek pagans. And of course, you're not going to be shocked, of course, if you read the Iliad and the Odyssey and you find that it's full of the gods are everywhere fighting amongst
Hmm.
each other and arguing and trying to determine the fate of the humans as it goes on. It's rather intriguing, and there's special effects. If you read the Iliad, you'll go, "Wow, that's gory." I mean, it's like a
Hmm.
very violent, gory, right? A story of blood and guts, and it's like no wonder they like the gladiatorial contest because they've got it all richly shown in there. So there's all these human passions that the gods share in, hatred and love and vengeance and irritation and so on. It's all in there. So it just mesmerized the ancient world.
Hmm.
They couldn't get enough of that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and also of course, it's like nobody was supposed to be at a standstill. Back then when these stories started to spread, and these different things were going on. I mean, the idea was not to say this is the cultural philosophical end all be all, right? That's the end of it. We've reached the peak, and nobody's supposed to develop anything. It's just supposed to be repetition. I mean, this is what happened a lot in Europe later. When fields like medicine, they were stuck in the past. They would just refer to old Greek ideas about where diseases came from. Some of these
The
these bad
Hippocratic
winds.
Oath.
Yeah, but also the bad winds, like bad things in the air that
Well,
would.
they didn't know about germs because they didn't have
Yeah.
microscopes.
Yeah, and so and
They
and
didn't
and
know.
so for a long time in Europe, people just kept repeating, and we're not really developing anything. So it's like when people get inspired by an old text like this, it's like, do you really see that? Do you really see people, really see people turning into Jack the Ripper because they felt inspired by, an episode of an old Greek text? This is just we
Well,
don't need.
maybe Alexander the Great and Caesar, who were mass murderers right in their day, were inspired by that, because I'll tell you, William Hartpole Lackey was an Irish British, uh, uh, I guess you could say, social historian. He wrote famously in 1867 the history of European morals, and he sort of divides everything into the ancient Greek and Roman period, and of course modernity, the Christian follow on, and of course Christian morality is very different from ancient
Oh
pagan
yeah.
morality, because and what he says is, look, this morality was all about the hero. What it was to be great, to be good, was to be heroic. And and this is what's portrayed in the Iliad and the Odyssey as heroes. Now, these heroes aren't. This is what's shocking. This is why the translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey in the 19th century, in the Victorian age or earlier ages, are suspect, because if you were a Christian and you read this, you'd be shocked, right,
Mm-hmm.
by the immorality of the heroes. Because by Christian morality, these people are behaving
Horrible.
very badly. This is not
Yeah.
chivalry, right? This isn't so. Um, but what Lecky points out is that it was this heroic man, this heroic thing, which was that Alexander the Great was the pinnacle of, and Julius Caesar in the Roman world was the pinnacle of, these military conquering heroes that had these incredible adventures, defeated. If you look at the order of battle at the final battle against the Persians, where Alexander the Great's line is this long, his battle line is this long, and the Persian battle line is this long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going, how this tiny thing comes up against this thing and wipes it out, right? And you're looking at this and you're saying, this can't happen. So how 10,000 men destroy, or what it was that Alexander's army was, I think it was 10, 12, 15,000 men maybe, destroys, a horde of 60,000 Persians in one day. This here, and again, Julius Caesar at Alesia, Julius Caesar defeating Pompey, Julius Caesar in Africa defeating Scipio, Julius Caesar all over the map in Egypt, saving Cleopatra. His adventures are like, he should have died in each one of these things. And he almost did each time, but he served, 9 lives, and he lived the heroic epic, and but morality,
Yeah, well,
these
but
guys were not nice, right?
yeah, but it's like this is what I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, when I'm just trying to figure out as precisely as possible, with the example of the United States of America, how much had to be focused on security and expansion, because you didn't know what the threats of the future was going to be. How tough did you need to be? Or what was, how tough did you need to be, and how could you still improve things and maybe have a net profit of morality developing, and how hard this is. And some people tried that and some people didn't. They just figured out, well, it's too complicated. It's too difficult. We're glad we have a system that works, and winning is all that matters. So it's like when an intelligent person reads into the Greeks or the Romans, or any other structure in meaningful structure in the past. I mean, a smart person, they can sort of put themselves mentally in the position of these people back then. You can take some inspirations out of it, but you don't have to copy and paste necessarily, or you don't have to copy and paste everything, and you can't just do the stupid thing and use something old as a blank check to be as evil as anything. I mean, this is what the Nazis did, right? The Nazis always had this thing about, well, the Romans did it, so it's okay. If the Romans did it,
Well, the
then we
Nazis
can do it.
were,
It's like,
yeah, the Nazis were kind of a throwback to the pagan morality. They
yeah,
definitely were. They were
yeah,
a break with Christianity.
but they were not
Yeah.
stable. I mean, the Nazis were not stable, and this all didn't work out at all. And it's like,
But of course, the Nazi regime, it's interesting you mentioned stability. The big problem in ancient Greece that the Spartans pointed out was that Athenian democracy, which Gustav Le Bon called socialism, that and egalitarian socialism, that it was an unstable form of government. That Athens created this imperial power. Democratic Athens became like the Soviet Union. It became an aggressor. It became a genocidal machine that was trying to conquer everybody ultimately. And you've got the Melian dialogue, which is this Milos was a colony of Sparta in the islands in the Aegean that did not want to join the war against their mother country, which was Sparta, because they were colonists from Sparta. And Athens said, well, we control the sea and you're on the sea. You're an island. If you don't join us, we'll exterminate you. And they said, look, this is wrong. Well, you can't make us go against our own. We won't, and wouldn't be right for you. We don't want to fight you. We're not your enemy, but we don't want to be the enemy of our mother country. And so the famously, the Melian dialogue is this argument that the Melians tried on the Athenians arguing for justice, and the Athenians said, well, might makes right. And he who has the power, is the one that's going to decide. So you better save yourselves or not. And then they wiped out the city. They killed all the men, and they put the women and
yeah,
children into
and also
slavery. And then they put their own colonists
yeah,
in,
and
right?
there
So
have
that
been,
was a famous moral, and it was really it was a sort of moral lesson from the Peloponnesian War that Thucydides outlined in his history.
and there have been powerful people that were super evil, but they're also so narcissistic. They wanted to pretend that they could do the hardest thing, complete the hardest challenge, be tough, but also good at the same time, and have the balance.
Alexander the Great and
So-
Caesar were both narcissists. There's no doubt
so
about
this
it.
this is something that people need to watch out for, because it's like, it's the toughest thing to do. And so it's seen as the greatest achievement. So people want to pretend they've actually done that, they've actually achieved that, even though they didn't achieve that at all. And you see that with all kinds of people that have some sort of power. So you have to really look closely. And also in more modern systems, more modern societies and government structures, there's so much secrecy and there's so much division of tasks that it does become difficult to make decisions, or if you can even make decisions, right? Because usually it's very top down, or and it's very secret, and it's tough to actually determine if the leadership is doing the right thing. They're tough enough, but not just over the top evil and totally crazy. Because once you do have a super evil leadership, they could become horrendously unstable. I mean, it's one thing if you say, okay, I accept evil as long as it's all stable, but what if it becomes unstable? What if the leadership is crazy? What if they are sitting in their temples, in their temples, just gorging on psychedelics and asking some weird, oracle what to do next? Or maybe burn it all down, or
the first moralizers, you could say, were Thucydides and Xenophon, Socrates and Plato and then Cicero and the enemies, Cato the Younger, and Brutus. These were the moralizers of this pagan, the enemies of Caesar, the critics of Alexander the Great, or the people who criticized Athens for its imperialism. A kind of Western morality and Christianity, you could say, began with these Stoic and Platonic philosophers who started to reason about morality. And it's interesting, and maybe the pagan gods were dead from that point on, because Christianity, as it formed, became totally aligned with these certain moral ideas. Christ exemplified, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and a form of more than justice, but love for your fellow man. Love your enemy. Be kind to those who persecute you. This kind of thing. A higher standard of morality emerged from this, and of course you really see it expressed perhaps in the Stoicism of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. If you read his meditations, you're saying, wait a minute, this guy is obviously a transitional figure from the ancient world of the heroes to this new Christian world of following a model of a self-sacrificing, humble person who's picking up their cross, so to speak. And when you go, Jacob Burckhardt, who wrote a famous, which is his lectures on Greece, was a professor of ancient Greek culture. He once, in a lecture, he said to his class, "Notice how the Greek gods, the statues we have, the images of the Greek gods passed down to us, they're all beautiful. The Greek gods and goddesses are all beautiful, depicted as perfect in their beauty, but there's a touch of sadness in those faces of those gods," he pointed out. And he said, perhaps this touch of sadness is because there is no kindness, there is no gentleness, there is no none of these Christian qualities in those gods.
So this person that did this new translation, this Wilson woman, Wilson graduated from Balliol College, Oxford, with a BA in literature, classic literature, philosophy. She completed an MPhil in English Renaissance literature at Corpus Christi College, Oxford, and a PhD in classical and comparative literature at Yale University in 2001. Now,
she must be pretty talented, by the way. That's a hard row to hoe,
Yeah. But it does get it does get so complicated, right? Because think about it, right? It's the world of Oxford, that's kind of the realm of that's kind of the realm of British Freemasonry, right? This is like this used to be this grand, very grand and very aggressive British Empire.
Now just a bunch of old duffers who are trying to hide their homosexuality, right?
So that was like a very grand, very aggressive empire, and of course the competitors were also very, very fierce, obviously. So then this was in 1717. They create this seemingly new thing. They copied it from somewhere in Scotland, though. But they said, we have this new thing. It's called Freemasonry, and it's they call it a system of morality encoded in symbols and allegories, which sounds like the Odyssey, or stories like the Odyssey, where these stories are told, and you're supposed to connect with the story, learn from the story, and you're supposed to change by reading the story. Or some people would say specific stories are like a gateway, or music, art can be like almost a magical gateway to unlock secrets or whatever, or secret forces, or maybe connect you with entities. This is also a very popular concept. So again, they called Freemasonry a system of morality. Like, this is supposed to be the core of Freemasonry, which was attached to an empire, right? But they say, oh, we got this new thing, this new super cool system of spreading morality, right? So then, out of this, and to a degree, Masonry Masonry didn't really change in the United States after the Revolution, so it was kept mostly intact. It was different strands of Masonry that came over to the colonies first. It was like a Scottish Rite Masonry, the Royal Arch Masonry, standard English Masonry. So there were already different brands of Masonry came to the 13 colonies, and the lodges in the colonies, they were of course attached to the super lodges usually in England. So then revolution happened, and Freemasonry was continued. And there was no more of that foreign jurisdiction of Masonry, but Masonry pretty much stayed the same. There was some additional stuff that they did in the United States. Kind of like they changed the York Rite or the Royal Arch system, and they added some systems on top of it, which are very elitist. So they had like a system they called cryptic Freemasonry, and all these fancy sounding titles. And so it was a very, very selective process who could go on into these other rites. So it's like, how many stories about morality do you really need? Why do you need to teach morality through these symbols or these Masonic rituals, and for how long do you actually need to do that? And so and in addition to American Masonry, these universities like Yale, they had this kind of a bit of an obsession with the ancient world too, as like these Greek letter fraternities, Delta Kappa Epsilon or whatever. They a lot of fascination with ancient Greek going on there. But when we look at Britain, and this, their supposed fascination with morality encoded in allegories and symbolisms, we can see what a misguided morality leads to. And this is when the Fabian Society took off, which was left wing, but it was really tolerated by the British Empire for very strange reasons. So they established the Fabian Society. They established the London School of Economics, which became the hotbed of modern leftism. And ultimately, some of these British left-wing authors, I think it was Hobson especially, these authors were outright plagiarized by Lenin. And this became Lenin's seminal, this is Lenin's greatest hits. He took that from these British guys who said, we're going to have a whole new system of morality. We call it socialism. It's just like the best thing ever, and we just eradicate evil with our socialism. So let's just do that. And so, and this went off the rails so hard, right? And it was, there were a lot of British, in British elite circles and government circles, the British were taking the lead on, ultimately deciding on whether or not they should get involved in the Russian Civil War, so-called Reds against the Whites. Now, the Whites were not good either. There was crazy fascists among those Whites and weirdos who said they descended from Genghis Khan and they wanted to build a new golden horde and blah, blah, blah. So the Whites were not good either. But so the decision was made, especially in Britain, and the Americans kind of followed along this logic. A decision was made to just let it play out. Let it play out what happens in Russia. You know, that they're responsible for their own destiny. You know, we'll try some things. You know, we'll try a few covert operations, this and that, shipping some weapons. But ultimately, let's just let it play itself out, or let's just accept it if the Reds win. And then it got worse. And then the British said, we should trade with the Reds, with the new Soviet government. And they had all these was it Felix Frankfurter in America? I think he went on to the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, or something. Became a very important guy.
Yes.
So some of these people, they became open to socialism, and they started to do a lot of trade in New York, and these things happen, and it's almost like this idea of let's reinvent morality. That went completely off the rails, and I'm wondering at what headspace Wilson is in when it comes to these topics that she didn't study. I mean, she studied all this classical literature and philosophy and blah, blah, PhD, all super fine. But what about the stuff she didn't study? What about the empires, warfare, and intelligence matters, and how these empires are run? I mean, it does become a problem when somebody like Wilson or somebody like Christopher Nolan, the director of the new upcoming Odyssey movie, she's into classical literature. He's an artist. He's a filmmaker, and he has to sign a contract with a major Hollywood studio to finance this whole thing. I mean, what headspace are they really in when it comes to morality, and how do they, what do they believe? How we fix it all? I mean, Nolan seems very much like a Freemason to me.
Your expression, the idea that they believe we can fix it all, which I think they do think, is a cardinal error. We can't fix it all. That's the problem, and we have to be honest. And I think what we've had this is what Socrates and Plato and Aristotle might say, is that we're living here, we're all going to die, and we're living in this imperfect world where we don't see the future, we don't understand even the past, we understand very little, and we're passing through it, and we're all preparing to die. Life is a preparation for death. That's real immortality, is when we die and go to the next world. And these people, these modern people who have a physicalist orientation, they believe there is no next afterlife. They don't believe in God or the gods.
We create heaven on earth,
We're going to make heaven on earth, right? So we're going to fix it here. We're going to be God. We're going to recreate everything in our image. No, this is the ultimate. This is where the ancient Greeks, they would never try to do that. The ancient Greeks were, fudging around the edges, but with the truth. But these people, they want to change reality. They think that they can remake the world, repaint everything. This is where Nietzsche comes up with the parable of the madman who comes and says, God is dead, God is dead. You're the murderers of God. You killed him, or we killed God, right? You erased the horizon. What will you do to make up for this murder? How will you atone for this? The greatest deed ever committed, and of course, and there's almost a mockery in this, that we think that we've killed God. And of course, the reality is that we basically killed ourselves. If you look at what happened after
Nolan seems to me like a very much like a Freemason. Especially when you watch Interstellar. I mean, it's like it has Freemasonry and the Royal Society written all over it, because the Royal Society actually, as a premier scientific organization, it existed before Freemasonry, but under the old British kings, the Catholic kings, the Royal Society, they allowed Rosicrucian mumbo jumbo and all kinds of craziness. It wasn't a mature scientific organization. But then when Freemasonry was created under the new king. They made those two sister organizations, Freemasonry and Royal Society. So one is on the surface purely scientific, and the other one is on the surface. Let's just search for the mysteries, the enlightenment, the light. Let's just transcend the normal human experience. But they have the same core. They belong together. And when I watched Interstellar, it seemed like, he's bringing it together. Especially the people at NASA, Freemasons are basically used to be every important person at NASA was like a Freemason, and the movie Interstellar ends with this hypercube structure, this multi-dimensional tesseract, and there's this magical force that transcends dimensions and time. It's like they say it's the love magic, like love conquers all magically somehow they say, and so there's a happy ending. There's a happy ending to the story, and the main character, Cooper, he starts out as a pilot, right? He's a very capable pilot. But then they don't need him anymore. He becomes a farmer. Like most people are farmers to make some food as long as they possibly can, because we evil capitalists ruined the planet. But then NASA needs him back because they have this space mission to find other habitable planets, right? So Cooper is one of the astronauts on this mission. And this mission is a bit like the Odyssey. It's just like this long, long journey through multiple dimensions, and he's experiencing all these things. He has to make all these choices, and but he comes out on top. This is almost like the Odyssey in a way, and yeah, it's like he wants people to change through the movies. It's just like woke cinema or left-wing cinema. They're almost using Masonic techniques, right? I mean, to create a more left-wing society, they use these stories and they use these emotions and they use these characters that go through all these things and come out on top. So it's almost like like a left-wing Freemasonry, or it's like Freemasonry per se, what we've been seeing with woke cinema so far. This is kind of like the same techniques that Freemasonry uses. And when it comes to the feminism part, right? It's almost like because Freemasonry was for men only for the longest time. I mean, there's other groups, of course, and elite women. They've kind of been, into the same ancient mystery cults. But Masonry was for men, and it's supposed to make you more than a man. It's supposed to turn you into this almost main character, this hero type. But then woke cinema, working just like Freemasonry, woke cinema, they focused on the females, and they're telling you, well, in the past, the patriarchy has kept you in the dark. Just like before you as a man, before you join Freemasonry, before you join a lodge, you're in the dark. You're not enlightened. You're just stumbling in the dark, and your life is kind of meaningless. But once you enter the lodge, you enter into the light, and you get more access to enlightenment as you go through these initiations and through these ranks. So woke cinema for me is like woke cinema is like Freemasonry aimed at women. They wandered in the dark, suppressed by the patriarchy, but now they can step into the light and they can gain more enlightenment, and they can have these incredible journeys. Now, in reality, the journey is, for modern women, the journey is okay, get a corporate job, go get a university degree, get into student loan debt. Then you find a corporate job, pay your taxes, and get older. That's it. That's your enlightenment. It's not very, it doesn't sound like much fun. But this is kind of like this is what Hollywood really has been doing. So it's like Nolan is probably a Freemason. He's using Masonic techniques in his craft, art, and now he's praised the Odyssey translation of a woman who seems like she comes out of these British Masonic, out of this British Masonic world. And as I said, when they want to create heaven on earth and have this super plan about spreading morality, it did end up in communism, or British played a certain role in the modern communism and modern left.
Feminism has ultimately merged with the communist agenda. I mean, that's what it's really come down to.
The liberation theology, right? Well, it's like
radical. We call it radical. I mean, the founding mothers, so to speak, Gloria Steinem, Bella Abzug, and all these people, they were communists. All these feminists, so it was this idea of radical equality, radical reforming society, leveling society, and then making everything new. Like we can actually do that, as if society and human nature are not given, as if we can remake human nature. That was when I was in graduate school. That was one of the things. Oh no, there's no such thing as human nature. There's no instincts. Well, maybe there's a sucking instinct in infants, and it's like, what? No instinct? No, you read Gustave Le Bon and it's all about instincts. It's all about nature. He got famous writing a book about how to train horses. It was considered the most excellent manual in training horses. Well, you had to understand the nature of a horse if you wanted to train a horse. And it was just considered excellent. So when Gustave Le Bon started writing about human nature, he couldn't stop but write about instinct. And so a lot of these things we look at that are in ancient Greek, which is maybe one of the first modern societies, except I think that you go back to Babylon and Sumeria and Egypt, you're going to find modernity cropping up there too, what we call modernity. This craving for this envious craving for equality on the part of a mass of a society of masses rather than classes, right? In a class society, in medieval society, these people had their role here, and everybody's role was special. Nobody was awful. Everybody was good. They all had a good part to play. It's like what if the hands and the feet became envious of the stomach for getting all the food, right? So let's starve the stomach. Well, what happens to the strength in the arms and the feet and the legs? Yeah. It goes out because they starved the stomach. I mean, it's ridiculous. Every single part of the human body works together, right? So that was the idea of society, is the parts are what are essential to the whole. Well, people rejected that. Now you have an undifferentiated mass. We live in the age of democracy, right, or socialism. This is very dangerous. This is where you get totalitarianism from. This is mass formation. Matthias Desmet writes about, and of course Le Bon is describing, and Hannah Arendt in her 3-volume work on totalitarianism, volume 1 being on anti-Semitism. So it's no wonder that socialists end up becoming National Socialists, or Stalin ends up persecuting Jews, right? In the Doctor's Plot, it becomes anti-Semitism because the Jews represent a different organ within the body politic that performs a specific function. And no, we can't have that. Everybody's got to be masses. Why are they apart? Why are they special? See, it used to be everybody was part of a special part, and no more. So nobody's special.
Yeah, and it's like when things that are advertised and promoted, when it just destabilizes everything, right? It's like, Okay, so
When everybody's somebody, then no one's anybody, right?
birth rates go down, and it's like, yeah, it's just this is not the heaven on earth that was being advertised. This is not the, this enlightenment journey that was promised. And it's like the Odyssey. The Odyssey is not itself a mystery cult text, but it does contain underworld, initiation, death and return, secret knowledge and purification and temptation, soul journey. So very much overlapping with Greek mystery religion, and so this is what I think. This is what is drawing people. What is drawing people to this, or is supposed to draw people to this. But in a modern sense, not everybody can be the main character. Not everybody can become the hero, especially when we look at fantasy cinema like Star Wars or The Matrix or Harry Potter. It's always like this average guy, or a guy who thinks he's average. He hates his life, and he gets contacted by the secret group, and they tell him that he's the chosen one. He's been prophesized about. He's the main character. And they have to teach him the magic, and then he becomes like the best at it, or he's leading the revolution, against the evil,
These are all
evil
all
empire.
these modern movies are Gnostic texts. It's Gnosticism seems to be the spirit. And what is Gnosticism? It's saying that this is a prison planet, and it's all bad here, and we have to revolt, and we have to take over the ship, so to speak. And it's all about the revolution. And they're not revolutionaries; they're just revolting, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to read an ancient text and start sacrificing animals. It's like book 11 of the Odyssey. Odysseus performs a necromantic ritual. He digs a pit, sacrifices animals, pours blood, summons the dead, and consoles the prophet Tiresias. So a Cambridge Classical Quarterly article summarizes the ritual. Odysseus slits the throats of 2 sheep, drains the blood into a pit, and the dead swarm up from the underworld, attracted to the blood. So it's like a payment, right? I have to produce this blood, give up these animals.
This is what Satanists believe, right? You slaughter a baby and you get a spirit come up, and
you have to pay, and this is the currency, and this is how you contact the entities. So they give you advice, or they give you a hint or something, so this is obviously a strong element in the story. And the Eleusinian mysteries were built around the myth of Demeter and Persephone: loss, descent, surge, return, and reunion. So
death and rebirth, basically. Pluto was the god of the underworld. Persephone was his wife. She got there's a long story about how she ended up under there, but they there's this idea about death and rebirth and renewal that goes with Pluto, and who is also the god over money.
Yeah, and also I think in there's this bit in Freemasonry. It also symbolizes like you replay an old story. I think this one is the Hiram Abiff story, and it's like there's multiple instances of this. So basically, the character gets struck down, he dies, but then he kind of rises up, or you rise up and you become a Mason. So I mean you can take this stuff in different ways. There's also in things we learn about the more hardcore mystery cults, or what often is called Satanism. There's like, you have to kill your old self, literally. You have to prove that you cut bonds, or you cut all the regular ties to the real world. You may have to kill a relative to prove that you're worthy, that you make these transitions. And you have to kill your old morals. You have to kill your your old regular self, and sometimes these rituals had substances added to them, so you could make somebody go on a fake journey. You can give him a specific dose of a psychedelic, and he would have these oftentimes horrendous hallucinations and panic attacks, and people, I mean, even people that overdose on THC or some of these substances, when they get panic attacks, they sometimes or a bad trip, what they call a bad trip on other psychedelics. A lot of people say they felt like dying. They felt like time had stopped. The walls were closing in. They were seeing all these horrible things. It felt like dying, but eventually they would come back to their normal self. And then of course you could continue a ritual and give the person another substance that would make them feel really, really good. And add a bit of theatrics and steer the whole thing, so you could have a ritual where somebody has that fake experience of going into the underworld, meeting up with strange creatures, feeling like they're dying, and then they come back to life. So there's all kinds of things you can do with that, right? There's just like there's like these archetype elements of these stories, and you can make a hardcore cult out of this, right? Now, in Book 11, Odysseus does not enter a Christian-style hell. He contacts the dead in a Greek underworld presided over by powers such as Hades and Persephone. A modern summary of Book 11 notes that Odysseus goes to consult Tiresias and encounters his mother, Agamemnon, Achilles, Ajax, and other shades. And so, talking...
Agamemnon was the leader of the Greek armies that came to siege Troy.
He encounters all these characters, his mother and these other guys, and so this is like something that we see even in modern Satanism. When you want to contact the dead, for some specific purpose, like they tell you something that's of use to you. And,
spiritualism was a movement where you hold seances and you talk to the dead.
And so then Odysseus is repeatedly tested by beings who know more than ordinary mortals. And he learns special information that others do not possess. And he must control his fear, he must control grief, curiosity, rage, his passions. And this resembles initiation, even if it's not, formal mystery initiation. And there are various stages to this. Now, of course, at some point, people thought, "Oh, there's all these hidden messages in it, these under meanings." And the clearest Odyssey example is Porphyry's "On the Cave of the Nymphs," a Neoplatonic allegorical reading of Odyssey 13. So others said the cave's humidity symbolizes the material world, and the wetness of the soul symbolizes embodiment, and just on and on and on. Ancient esoteric philosophers found the Odyssey highly usable as sacred allegory. Again, that's like Freemasonry all over again. So this is going to be coming out fairly soon. And now the other big cultural phenomenon that is about to happen is not too different from that, right? This disclosure movie by Steven Spielberg. This whole UFO theme and this whole alien theme that's been going around Hollywood for a long time, and it has turned into a quasi-political or a quasi-religious movement, right? And people have, some people believe they've been abducted, and it felt like this journey, like they're dying, and they see these creatures, and then they return from this strange underworld, return to the living. Now they claim to have special knowledge, have a special connection with this other world. It's like there seems to be a lot of overlap here, right? If you think that, the aliens are, maybe they are the gods, maybe the aliens are these entities, maybe this is where it all comes from. And so again, Hollywood using Masonic techniques on the audiences, and already a vast portion of the American citizens find it highly likely that intelligent life has already visited us, or has crash landed multiple times, or even has created us, or has created these ancient civilizations. Because that's like the connecting thing, that the Greeks became so successful, and the Egyptians, and then everybody, they all became so successful because of contacts with these aliens, with these beings. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that is going to play out. Not just in terms of people wanting to believe in these aliens, but politically, what will people turn this into? What is the intention of Steven Spielberg and the studio that is making this movie? So what's your hunch about this one?
Spielberg. I've been following this UFO thing pretty carefully in recent months and years. There is an attempt to get everyone to believe that contact with aliens from another planet, another world in this dimension is imminent. And of course, then they talk about interdimensional, whatever that means. You'll hear that. Well, some of them are interdimensional, or they are interdimensional. Congresswoman Luna made the statement on Joe Rogan that she was at a briefing, and they said that the non-human entities piloting the UFOs were interdimensional. This is really suspicious. And of course, you'll see, like Close Encounters of the First Kind, there's some weird things in that movie, right? There's some psychic, almost occultic kind of things going on in the movie that isn't quite straightforward, nuts and bolts craft. And I think we're going to see that in this movie. An element that's a little bit spooky is probably going to happen. Psychic kind of things. You're not just contacting other beings like ourselves, physical beings like animals. They're not just merely animals. There's
your audio just cut out for some reason. It all went silent. Maybe it's the aliens or not. So I just pulled up a synopsis of the plot. So while you're trying to restart the audio here, so it says the plot of Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day follows the protagonist Daniel Kellner, a cybersecurity expert who steals and leaks classified government secrets that prove the existence of extraterrestrial life, goes on the run with a group of allies to expose the truth to the entire world, facing off against the shadowy head of a private corporation determined to keep the secret. So, yeah, it's typical Hollywood. They don't want to be too offensive towards the government. It's like we've seen that in other shows like 24 with Kiefer Sutherland playing the the counter-terrorism agent Sutherland playing the character of Jack Bauer, and they went pretty hard on the presidency in one of the other seasons, but oftentimes in these shows the main bad guy is a corporation, because the corporation can be destroyed and can be dismantled, and that's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the system, but yeah, there's still. I mean, they talk about a 79-year-old cover-up that needs to end. So they are kind of criticizing the government to a degree. And then there's this weather report woman, Margaret Fairchild, in Kansas City, begins acting strangely on live television. And this is like something that's announcing the alien phenomenon.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. I just gave a quick rundown of the plot. So it's like they're criticizing the government for the cover up, but the main antagonist is a corporation. Protagonist is a cybersecurity specialist who steals classified files, and there's this other protagonist, a woman, a Kansas City meteorologist, and she's starting to blabber in a weird language. And they have a mind connection. They have a psychic connection, despite never having met. Margaret is able to warn Daniel of the corporation's assassins hunting him. As Daniel and his allies travel to reveal the truth, the ruthless corporate leader, again, evil capitalism, the ruthless corporate leader attempts to stop them, claiming that releasing the information will upend all established order across the entire world. Ooh. So, yeah, those evil capitalists, they try to keep the truth from us.
The problem is when people have a lot of wealth and they don't have the power to defend it, boy, are they vulnerable to people. They can raise a mob against them. And this is the game, I think.
I mean, people have lost hope. I think, hope in the system or political ideologies or standard religions, because of all the disappointments and humanity hasn't changed that much.
There is no political solution to our troubled evolution.
Yeah, and so
no
and so
faith
there's
in
like
Constitution, right?
Yeah, and so there's like this desire for a new thing, a new way, and something that is extremely powerful, that is more powerful than the U.S. government and the Pentagon and capitalism and blah 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 blah. So, yeah, and so I mean, if this is what we know about the plot, I mean, this implies that the protagonist believes that disclosure would be a good thing, but wouldn't that mean the aliens are good? Potentially good.
There's a question there. Look, it is a very complicated subject, this UFO UAP subject, because it brings together philosophy, epistemology, theology. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Theology. It brings together all these different subjects, science, and of course sociology. And the problem that we have here is that nobody's come out and trotted out, and here's the wreckage of one of these craft. Here's the bodies taken from. We're being tantalized that these things exist, but nobody's produced the actual goods yet, right? Which is getting, the longer this goes on, the more suspicious this becomes. People have an amazing ability to fabricate in their minds or imagine or mythologize and create things that aren't literally true to be true. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't wreckage. You got all these people now, all these whistleblowers saying, look, we've got crash retrieval teams. We've retrieved things. What those things are is, and it's all just rumor so far, and it's scientists and whistleblowers speaking, David Grush going before Congress and saying they have biologics, that is, they have bodies. It's a funny way of saying it. There's their reverse engineering technology. Love to see that, but and we shouldn't discount it, because now the number of people that have gone on the record saying this is real, it's starting to say, wait a minute, could all these people be deluded and lying? It becomes like, I don't know. You have to be open-minded. But there's this psychological weapon side of this. There was a Soviet/Russian general who died a few years ago who had writings that some of which were declassified, talked about UFOs as psychotronic weapons, and no explanation. I'm sure there's an explanation in the secret part of his writings, but saying this is a weapon. This UFO thing is a weapon. How is it a weapon? What does that mean? And then you've got the Robertson panel back in 1952. The Robertson panel was looking at what Blue Book was doing in its early months and years of operation, saying the phenomenon is not a threat to us, but the Soviets can use it as a weapon, as a kind of psychological weapon. And then you've got the stranger testimony of Whitley Strieber, one of the primary alleged abductees of these beings. And he doesn't call them aliens. He calls them the visitors. And he says something very sinister in a recent interview that he did with Ross Coulthart, which is worth seeing because it's rather cryptic. And he says that now he had an uncle that was in the Air Force, and he met this Air Force general that was high up in the structure that told him things, told him Roswell was real, apparently. But what he said is that they didn't want, one of the reasons they didn't want people to believe in this or to talk about it is there was some kind of power that these beings got from people believing in them, that somehow they could enter our world, that they're from a different reality, and that by us talking them up and believing in them, we were manifesting them somehow. I mean, this was what, and Strieber isn't the only one who's suggested this. You've got the late Carla Turner with her really frightening book, which is called Masquerade of Angels, right? Which is about this, the guy is kind of psychic, who has abductions from the time he's a boy, terrifying abductions, which are involving, now this is really strange, rape, and he was a boy. Raping a boy is part of it. And these beings want to rape him? Does this sound, extraterrestrials are coming all the way from Zeta Reticuli to rape 10-year-olds?
It's absolutely
right?
silly,
So
yeah.
this sounds rather demonic. And Carla Turner, she was an abductee. She was a history professor in Texas. She got abducted. Her family got abducted. And she said, this is not what it seems. There's something sinister. You talked about the beings being sinister. She definitely, I mean, this is one of the most terrifying books I've ever read about this man plagued throughout his life by these reptilians that rape him, these demonic creatures, and murder his grandmother, by the way. Killed his grandmother.
I mean, logically, if we think about the core of what has been described and what's been turned into this new movie, right? So the government and the capitalists, so basically
they're hiding these wonderful reptiles from us, or insects, or whatever they are.
From a baseline, leftist perspective, so the bad guys, the patriarchy, the capitalists, the evil government.
Notice how the bad guys are always us.
Yeah,
are always our team.
Yeah, and also, of course, the human military, or especially the American military, as if the generals just are so hyper focused about war. They just want to have war every day against everybody, and it's just like they would never actually.
This is not a real description.
As if they want this never to end. is classic Marxism, right? It's like we're
Yeah.
fighting for the capitalism doesn't function, so we're fighting for resources, and therefore imperialist wars and everything goes downhill. So the
It's
bad
class
guys,
war. Yeah.
yeah. So according to this storytelling, the bad guys figured out that advanced, spacecraft of an advanced civilization has crash landed, or have crash landed multiple times. It's constantly crash landing. So the bad guys know this, and they keep this a secret to maintain the evil capitalist militant order. So this is kind of what they're saying. But there's so many logical problems with this. There's so many things that don't really make sense. Now, first of all, if these are these super advanced civilizations, why do they constantly crash land? I mean, if you can travel through these distances, or you find some new fancy super way of traveling, you have what's called a type 2 or type 3 civilization. You are so advanced, you could send probes. You could send probes in all kinds of places. Why would it have to be a physical crew? Why would they crash land all the time?
And why didn't they find these crashes back when George Washington was around?
Yeah. I mean, and also,
where were these things falling out of the sky all these years? Where
yeah,
people
I mean, of course,
look at these bodies we found, and look at this rock. What is this?
Yeah, and it's like, of course, when when something new happens, something meaningful new happens, of course, the first instinct of a government is to keep it a secret for for now, and just to figure out what to do with this information. Of course, that's kind of like the instinct. But over time, I mean, there's just no. I mean, what is the argument here? Everybody would totally panic. I don't think people would panic. They actually want this to happen. I mean, a majority of people are
they've been primed for it. Yeah,
people want this to happen. People are fascinated by this idea, and if there's a crash landing, why would and you can figure out what these beings are about, what kind of civilization they have, what they can offer us. Are they friendly? Are they a threat? I mean, if they're a threat, a real serious threat,
you've got the Gnostic. The Gnostic translation is that this is a prison planet, and they've got the moon is a hollowed out spaceship that they perpetually faces the Earth, and that they use it to. That's the occupation army, right? That's the Death Star orbiting the Earth, and so we're the prisoners here, and our memories have been erased, so we don't know who we are. And the aliens subtext is all throughout this lore,
So what is the storytelling going to be? Because if you have crash landed alien spacecraft, and you can sort of, I don't know, figure out they are a threat, a serious threat. Well, either you keep
anything that advanced, it's beyond being a threat, because if they exist, they could have wiped us out a long time ago, and they haven't.
Yeah,
so
if it's a serious threat, right? If it's a serious threat, there is an argument for continuous secrecy. There is going to be, a point where there's preparations being made against this threat. There's going to be eventually other governments would be keyed into this, so they can all prepare.
But that's not the argument. Is not that they're hiding it because they're a threat. The argument is that they're hiding it because they've harvested technology and they don't want to share it. Right? That's the argument.
Yeah, that's
now.
Here's
a problem with that is that if you go back to you read Peter Kingsley's book Reality about the ancient Greeks, the claim is that all technology, all the sciences were born from incubators, people who went into caves and had like near-death experiences by sensory deprivation, right, in caves. And they came back from Hades with science, with insights, with this is supposedly how science, this is Peter Kingsley's argument. And it's largely been accepted now. It's being progressively accepted by the by classical scholars, right, that this is really was what was going on in ancient Greece. So you have these mystical societies. You have the Thule Society. You have what is the one that the British and German mystics were involved in, that they were doing this kind of, they were conjuring spirits and trying to get technology out of them. The Vril Society, right? The Vril Society. So they supposedly, this crash that happened, that David Grush said happened in Italy, supposedly the Vril Society had created a craft from technology that they channeled, right, from some kind of interdimensional being, a demon, whatever it was. They built this thing and it went out of control and crashed in Italy, supposedly. So Grush is testifying before Congress, well, there was a crash before Roswell. So wait a minute. Are we opening a, this is the thing about the Babylonian death cult and demonic entities, is, are we opening a portal to somewhere? And there's this story about the one of the early rocket guys, a follower of Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, right?
Desert, yeah.
Jack Parsons and the founder of that cult, the founder of the what is it called?
What is it? The OTO,
he was a science fiction writer, Hubbard.
Yeah, Hubbard, yeah, Scientology.
Hubbard. So Scientology, he and Parsons out in the desert summoned a being, a little man with a big head, right? And that's the story in the desert in New Mexico, of all places, summoned this being. So, and Aleister Crowley, there's some surviving letter from him where, did they close the portal after they summoned this thing, I mean, very bizarre, and related at the beginning of all the UFO lore, you've got this sort of thing going on with Aleister Crowley, the famous British black magician, and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, but if aliens are a classical threat, then there's either an argument for secrecy. So why would the whistleblower hacker cybersec guy, why should he steal information and tell everybody as if he knows better than the government? So there might be an argument for secrecy, or there might be.
But if they're playing with the occult and it's coming from there, and you're talking to a homunculus, you might want to keep it secret for that reason.
Yeah, so there might be an argument for secrecy. Then there might be a likelihood of the government actually keying others in and then making it public so there can be a better defense. Or if aliens are a super threat, we don't stand a chance. We may not stand a chance anyway. So why all this movie? Why all this activism about all this hackers stole the files and this is how we improve the world and then save the world by stealing government documents.
If you want to open that magical door, you need disclosure to open the magical door and let them in.
Yeah, and then it's like this thing about, which sounds like the plot of this movie. The aliens are good, but these bad humans, the capitalists and the militant guys, the U.S.
They're
government,
trying to keep us from the magic.
They're trying to keep us from this goodness, because these bad humans, they don't want everybody to have access to this greatness that the aliens can provide. But then again, why would the humans be able to make that decision without the aliens overriding them? I mean, if you think about these aliens would be so powerful, why would these aliens leave that choice up to, some old crusty politicians and corporate CEOs and generals? Why would they leave the decision up to those guys?
It's very sinister. And if you want to take, there could be extraterrestrial stuff, but just think about this. If you have the power to go from one star to another in a matter of weeks, right? If you've got that kind of energy and power harnessed, that means you can destroy anything. If you know where it is, you could destroy any planet, you could destroy any star, that kind of energy, that kind of technology. Well, okay, if you've got a galaxy full of creatures, physical beings, that have this kind of power, they're going to be, and they're very different from each other, right? They supposedly evolved on different planets, and so think about the xenophobia there. You're talking about the dark forest hypothesis, which is the hypothesis that, why does the jungle go silent when the predator comes out, right? Everybody's quiet. We focus all these radio telescopes. Look, if there are civilizations, we've been looking since like 1938, 39, we've been using radio telescopes to listen in on distant stars. And I was kind of shocked when I read about this that, you know, uh, uh, there's a star that is like our sun. There's a couple of them about 21 light years away. What is it? Sigma Draconis or 70 Ophiuchi? I forget which one it is. They focused in on it, and they said that the power of our radio telescope, we could pick up 2 kids playing with a walkie-talkie.
Wow.
On that planet. That's how good our ability to pick up signals, radio signals from far away, because those signals, they go out and they travel, right? And they move at the speed of light and they go out. And guess what? Nothing. Silence. Nothing everywhere. You think that if you have a civilization, you're going to hear something. And it's crickets. No, it's not even crickets, right? I mean, it's the dark forest hypothesis. It's like, why are we putting out radio waves? This is like, what are we drawing everyone's attention to our existence? If you're a smart species, you don't put out those waves because something might be out there that might want to gobble you up and metabolize you, right? Because you don't know what's out there. So it's the dark forest hypothesis. If you want to be realistic about it, we're complete fools for doing this. For actually sending out radio messages. We're here, come and get us. And what is valuable about it? Look at our DNA. I mean, look at people who are against, don't believe in evolution, and I'm very skeptical of Darwinian evolution. You look at what's the most sophisticated technology on the planet? Human DNA. Right? That makes the human body. We can't make that. We can't make something that good as a human body. So who made it? Right? So if somebody wants something good, it's our DNA, right?
Yeah.
Come and get it. It's you. This is amazing. The human being is an amazing thing. And it's like, and of course people do say that these alien kidnappers from Zeta Reticuli or wherever ridiculous, that's what they're doing. They're taking the DNA samples all the time. They're looking at but I mean, it's very creepy. Yeah, whatever's going on.
Yeah, but if a civilization, an alien civilization is so advanced, and they would find us. I mean, Would they really?
They have to hide because they'll get gobbled up by something else out there. See, they're all gobbling up each other.
Would they treat us like? Would they treat us like lab animals?
Food,
really?
Food,
really?
Food.
It's like the imagination.
Metabolizes.
The imagination
How to serve man.
Of science fiction writers the imagination of many science fiction writers was actually very limited. I mean, if you watch the new movies based on the novel, the Frank Herbert novel Dune, right? There's like the 3rd one coming out now, and I never got around to reading the novel, so I started watching the first movie and the second movie, and then you see the trailer of the 3rd movie, and it seems like it's an intergalactic setting, but everything is very, very human-like. Classic old school imperialism. There's like this emperor and competing civilizations, and they have some sort of
this sounds like the Middle East, doesn't it?
Yeah. The Mahdi is coming, and this one group betrays the House of Atreides along with the emperor. But then
they're after the spice, which sounds like oil coming out of the Middle East, right?
Yeah. So the spice harvesting, but then this chosen one, or he starts to believe he's the chosen one, or he thinks he has to play the chosen one, whatever it is, to rile up the Sand Army, these Fremen people, and it's all going to end up in a massive war with billions of dead people. It sounds so backwards. It sounds so human and baseline.
He's
Whereas,
obviously cut and pasted a lot of stuff from human history.
yeah, when scientists have theorized about advanced civilizations, what would they look like? Would they call it Type 2 or Type 3 civilization? And there would be far beyond what we've been doing in theory. But when Hollywood is coming out with this stuff, and these whistleblowers keep harping on about this, it just seems like very baseline storytelling, and it's where the rubber meets the road. Will things actually really improve for the humans? No matter what they claim about, these aliens and the technology that they may have or whatever, do we really believe there's going to be this massive improvement without our input, without our human genius, without our human effort and our human heart, our human soul? It's just going to be delivered to us. It's going to come from somewhere else, and somebody else figured out all the solutions for us. I mean, it's like it is a replacement for, or it's kind of construed as a replacement for standard religion. Because why would you need this god or that god anymore when the aliens are here, or supposedly the aliens are here? Because everything is now determined.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah, I mean, the
fate will be
physical is,
determined by the aliens.
yeah.
Good and evil will be determined by the aliens. Hellish or heavenly circumstances will be determined by the aliens. And they might introduce, just like in Dune, they might introduce different alien factions, and this is the good faction, but this is the bad faction, and we have to go along with the good faction against the other one, but it's gonna cost us. It's gonna, it's gonna be
There's a lot of
sacrificing
talk,
for us.
there's just a lot of talk, these people who they talk about how they've got what is it, 0 point energy and free energy that could solve all of our problems and make heaven on earth. Again, you have the Gnostic theme cropping up, that we're on a prison planet and there's some evil force holding us back, and the maybe they have the good aliens versus the bad ones, and the Americans, one of the part of the lore is that the Americans have aligned themselves with the evil aliens to help suppress the planet. And this is where you've got the Robertson panel saying, look, the Soviets are going to use this as a weapon. They're going to create narratives. They're going to spin their own ideological themes into this whole UFO thing. And sure enough, you've got these communist themes spun in with the whole thing. Look, the early contactees, George Adamski, Howard Menger, all these people, they were depicting the aliens as communistic. With the blonde Venusians, they had the perfect society. What kind of society was that again? Not capitalism. So what were their connections? You see some of these early contactees connected with the silver shirts, the American Nazis. And then, who got control of the Nazi networks in America after the war? Oh, guess who captured Berlin? The Russians. Who got the names? The Russians. So did they flip these people to be with these UFO cults?
Yeah, and I've seen some of these. I've seen some of these science fiction stories, or kind of
the day the
genre.
Earth stood still is right out of there from the 50s. And also, this is right from the contactees.
Some sci-fi movies about aliens and disclosure, like the original Independence Day movie with Will Smith playing the lead character. That's also about disclosure, and the government keeps it secret, and even the president didn't know at first. And but then the aliens attack us, the humans fight back. And so, but then we figure out how to beat them. But it's always in these or some of these asteroid hitting the Earth movies and blah, blah. It's they seem to copy from traditional religion a lot, especially when it comes to the select few being part of the salvation. A few get saved, chosen ones get saved, the other ones die. So there was this one movie about an impending one of those movies, one of the impending asteroid or whatever. And so there's like an underground structure built by, I think, the U.S. government, but it's like an ark. It's like a Noah's Ark, and they are selecting the most suitable people to go into that ark, and everybody else will be left to die. And so they pick the scientists, they pick people that are healthier or younger. They have a selection of people, and they get saved, and the rest does not. And so when the communism or communism in real life was also very, very selective. It's like who lives and who dies, who thrives, who dies, and it was part of the loyalty system or the social credit system that they came up with. If you fell out of favor, your chances of living a longer life became slim, and the chances of your kids became also very slim. If you were one of the chosen ones, based on your loyalty to the system and the ideology, you had a much better chance of living and longer and thriving. Now, when I see the description of the new Spielberg movie, there's also like a bit of an ideological elitism in it. So the one character, the main character, he's like a rebel. He's like an anti-government, anti-corporate rebel. So he's one of the select ones. He's special. He's main character syndrome. He's special. So he's kind of a savior. But then there's also a woman, and she's channeling something. He's talking on television in these strange tongues, and she has a psychic connection to the guy, to the male protagonist. So there may be a selection or a selection ideology coming that's attached to this alien phenomenon, to this disclosure phenomenon, and only the believers will go on. Only the believers will be saved. People who behave in a specific way or live in a specific way, they will go on. They will survive, and the rest will die. Possibly because of the bad generals and the bad capitalists and the bad politicians, because they want to keep going on with wars and being so old school. So I think that this is gonna be a theme. You want to join this thing, or you don't want to join this thing. Just like in the Matrix movie, you want the blue pill, or you want the red pill. If you take the bad pill, you will be you wake up. Again, you're in the Matrix, you're plugged in, you're just a source of energy for the system, and then you will die and you will get replaced, and that's it. Or you take the other pill, and then you join the rebellion, and then you have a chance to really live. So, and
Yeah, this is again, this is Gnosticism, this whole thing. And Gnosticism was it's basically what all these modern ideologies are predicated on. They're modeled on Gnosticism, the idea that we're trapped in a bad reality, and that we have to change that reality. And this is not what human beings are given to do. But this is what Eric Voegelin said was the basis of Nazism, communism. A lot of these modern movements, they're all Gnostic movements. Here's your salvation. Here's your way out. of this, and they're all about distorting reality and not being truthful about reality. See reality as something bad that we have to escape from. So we need to, but they don't change reality. They just end up twisting the concept of reality up so that people can't be truthful. And that's why it's so dangerous.
Now now by introducing a foreign or alien actor into it's not just geopolitics anymore, it's now intergalactic politics anymore. If you fabricate another actor, you can do some pretty bad things with that, right? You can
Well, the
just
conspiracy theory is now the Jews are the agents of reptiles from space, right?
oh, I haven't heard that one yet.
That's
Haven't.
no, I mean, no. They've look at what do you think? What's his name? The British soccer player who
David Icke.
David Icke. So David Icke, that's what he's saying. And it's all everything about his conspiracy theory is identically matches with the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, right? And so when he talks about bankers or he talks about reptiles and the royal family are reptiles and the Rothschilds are reptiles, and I mean, what is he doing? He's
I mean, he did
linking
in one of
the
his
traditional conspiracy theory to extraterrestrial belief in extraterrestrial beings.
In one of his books, and I quoted that. I quoted that once because it was so important. In one of his books, he actually says that the bad things in our dimension or in our realm, all these bad things happen because we manifest them, because we feed bad energy into the cosmos. And so it's like we're guilty of the bad things because we think about the bad things. It's like this esoteric positive thinking scam where they say, well, if you think about good things happening to you, these good things will happen to you. You manifest them into your life. But if somebody else has a bad life, it's because he's so focused on the bad things that he's not manifesting the good things. So this is how you can blame everybody.
People attack me. People attack me with this, saying that, oh, you're just negative and you're gonna create World War III. You want World War III because you're warning people about it. I want my country to be defended, right? And so if you think about defense, if you think about these people who are coming after you, these enemies, you're the one creating it. You're the one at fault. So if you get cancer, you go to some party and what's the matter? You've got cancer. Oh, you need to think positive. You've been living wrong, right?
Yeah,
You've been
and just
misusing
a positive,
your energy.
and it's like this is how you can just twist cause and effect, and you can just accept anybody else being miserable. It's like, oh, it's their fault because they didn't apply the fancy magic that I have,
which is monstrous, because everybody is going to get sick and die in their life. That's part of life.
Yeah, and David Icke is a perfect example of this. He's been battling health issues for the longest time, but he claims in his fans' belief he has the special knowledge. But in his book, in his one particular book, he said that the system is trying to make us or manipulate us through guilt and fear. But then he manipulates the audience through feelings of guilt and fear. He says the bad stuff is going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening for as long as we don't use this white magic.
It's
our fault.
Worst of all the New Age.
Yeah, it's our fault. All this bad. It's our fault this bad stuff happens because we don't use positive magic and thoughts and thought magic. It's our fault, so we're guilty, and it's gonna stay bad, or it's gonna be even worse. It's the fear if we don't start adopting his way of doing things. And he does even say that physical resistance is bad, actual real resistance is bad. Only the magic resistance is supposed to be the correct way to fight these interdimensional monsters. I think he's something to the lower fourth dimension. That's where they supposedly came from. But the problem is, I mean, he was a frustrated guy who tried a very severe psychedelic. I think it was ayahuasca. This is what's become quite popular now. People go to the rainforest and they pay for a guide, and then they drink this disgusting concoction, and then they talk to
Makes them
people who are
sick and
not.
throw up. Yeah.
Yeah, and they talk to people who are not really there, and a few people, they come out fairly unscathed. Some people, they're changed forever, and now they see energies and magic where there really isn't any, right? But they feel it, and they think it's real because their feelings are what, and their perception is what matters to them, most, even though humans have benefited from shared experiences, experimentation, and not just blindly following any of these cults out there.
Open the door and see what walks through. What kind of entity grabs hold of you by the throat?
Yeah, it's like why would Hollywood be the good guy now? Why would Hollywood save us and get us access to the aliens? Or Steven Spielberg and his Hollywood friends, they're the good guys now, and they just put out that movie about a good guy who steals documents from the government. Again, stealing classified information is considered heroic. Is considered heroic in the movie because aliens. So yeah, people want this to be true, and it's not a measurement of or an element of falsification. I mean, things that you want to be true may actually be true, but they may not be true. So it's like, but people tend to focus on things that they want to be true. So they think something is more real or more likely when they want it to be real, when they want it to happen. This is usually what everybody is doing when they are in a heavy ideology, a very serious ideology. So they always go for the scenario that they want it to be like. So they want it to be a Jewish conspiracy and not a complicated world, full of actors and plots and ploys and myriad of intelligence networks. They want it to be this one single, easily identifiable root cause, because that's kind of like it seems like a more easy solution, right? They want the switcher. They want Putin to be the good guy. Solution. Yeah, they want Russians to be the good guy because it's a good feeling, if or it would be nice if there was a very benign Christian superpower in the world.
And because these people are masses and they have no real intelligence. They won't apply their intelligence. They won't be diligent about the truth. They are unclean in their thinking. And this is what they gravitate towards. Anti-Semitism is the ultimate shortcut for the unclean mind.
Yeah, it's like they can, somebody can wreck people's minds and say, oh, the aliens are the good ones, and we're just, we just close it now. Yeah. But then there's a plot twist. Oh no, they betrayed us. The aliens are really against us. They played us all along, and now they released some bioweapon, and we're all gonna die. Or many people are gonna die, not certain people. They're not gonna die. So it's like a stupid plot twist can come at any moment. Can be presented at any moment. So it's like let's be very, very cautious about this, and also. Things of that nature tend to modify people's behavior, people's decision making, right? I mean, there were a lot of people in the Cold War a lot of people back then in the Cold War who thought, well, the world could end tomorrow. There could be a nuclear war tomorrow. Why should I be responsible? Why should I build up a family or build a career or care about anything? Why not be on drugs the whole time? Why not be a silly hippie sleeping on everybody's couch, being stoned all the time?
It's a nice excuse, isn't it?
Or a lot of people that in the early 90s, just like this Oklahoma City guy, Timothy McVeigh, they were told that the big battle is going to happen soon. There will be United Nations tanks rolling through the United States. The Patriots are going to be
35
rounded
years
up.
ago, they were putting out that
Yeah. This
conspiracy
was
theory.
early '90s. I mean, I was still a kid in the early '90s, but they believed this was immediate and incoming. So why would you build a normal life? You had to gear up for this battle. I mean, nothing against preppers and the Second Amendment and being really concerned and all that, but it's just this particular belief back then. Oh, it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen soon. It's going to happen exactly in that way. And it changed people's decision making. Or in after 9/11, when the Patriot Act happened and the Military Commissions Act and all this legislation happened, a lot of people expected the worst, and they expected it very quickly. There's going to be a massive right-wing dictatorship in the U.S. I mean, the tools have existed for a long time. I mean, the Insurrection Act, that's all been there for a long time. But it was so specific that it changed people's decision making. A lot of people decided to become activists, but not experts. They decided to become, or they decided to not focus on a real career, not focus on people in their lives, and they were not really building anything solid. They were being not activists, not experts, and wasting valuable time. And I think that this whole alien disclosure thing may have a similar effect, because why should you care so much about the Russians? Why should you care so much about politics and culture? Because this much bigger thing is going to happen soon. Maybe in a year.
They've been
maybe
talking about this, by the way, for decades. Disclosure
Yeah.
has been on the lips of these people for decades.
Yeah, but
And
it's going to be
now
soon.
what are they saying? Oh, they haven't revealed anything. Well, yeah, that's true. We've seen some videos and things that are interesting, but again, no smoking gun yet. They're not.
Do you remember the
they're not
2012
trotting out
thing?
the body.
Do you remember the 2012 Mayan
Oh
calendar thing?
yeah, the Mayan calendar thing. Yeah, of course.
There were Hollywood movies about that. I watched this movie. It was called, I think it was
Yeah.
called 2012 by this.
Yeah,
this
that's right.
What was it? Was the Wolfgang Petersen movie? The guy who did Independence Day. I watched this movie. And it was like all this destruction and expensive special effects, and because this old Mayan calendar supposedly predicted this, but then 2012 came
Well, the
and
Mayan
went.
calendar didn't even predict it. All that happens is the Mayan calendar
It resets.
ends
Yeah, it
on
resets.
that date.
It resets. Yeah.
And they just didn't make a calendar that went beyond that date.
Yeah, and
So
it's
they
now
didn't
20.
calculate.
It's now 2026. It's like nothing happened. Nothing happened. So
We're waiting. We're waiting.
yeah, people need to be really, really careful. And it's like this old thing with become a psychonaut, do psychedelic drugs, and look up these beings and these other dimensions, and just focus on that. Don't be so outward focused. Don't really be a player in this playing field. Just wait for the look into yourself and use psychedelics and wait for the grand stuff to happen. And
It's very self-absorbed, isn't it? It's really self-absorbed.
but it's disguised as I think the opposite. It's disguised as something
Enlightenment.
that we share, and it feels like sharing. I mean, if you're into this stuff, if you wanna get hammered on some substance, and look into the sky or watch UFO disclosure documentaries, you will find enough people, either online or in your neighborhood or in your city. You will find enough people to share this with, and it's like it does have a profound effect on people when they think they have a crowd and they think they have a purpose and they think they are maybe part of the chosen ones, might be part of the chosen few.
Or when they think they're something, when they are something, when they are really nothing. This is what Socrates
I'm waiting for the
says,
moment.
trial.
I'm I'm waiting for the moment when something is being asked of people, when they're being asked to truly believe, or being asked to something, something specific, when when somebody wants something from them. Because it's not going to be free, right? It's not going to be totally free, they will probably say. Salvation isn't free, and it isn't for everyone. There's demands. There's like a payment. There's like because
And
maybe they'll play the interdimensional thing, and if you're not into
hand over the
psychedelics,
cash. Hand over the cash.
yeah,
If
or
you
if,
want
if
the
you're
truth.
not if you're not into psychedelics, and if you're not part of these groups, then you will be left out, right? You're not gonna join the aliens. You're gonna be stuck in this world with the capitalists and the generals and all that.
Oh,
Um,
the evil military industrial complex. Oh my gosh, it's such a horror.
yeah. So yeah, that's
As if America's been so bad all this time. And we've been living, oh, I feel so guilty. I've been living, no, you've been, that's what keeps you alive with the Russian missiles aimed at you and the Chinese missiles now aimed at you. This is what's keeping you alive. If that deterrent wasn't there, do you think those brutes over in Beijing and Moscow wouldn't use them? Come on, look what they're doing to Ukraine. Look at what they've done
yeah.
to the Uyghurs, the Chinese, and to the Tibetans. Give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, people are desperate for A New Hope, which was the title of, I think, the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. Something that's bigger than standard socialism, or bigger than oh, let's hope Putin will save us all. Um, People are longing for something like this, and I think that can be measured. I think that can be that, or has been measured in studies. How religious do people really feel? How much church attendance is there? People that are not religious, or not actively participating in religion, what do they think about their lives? What really, I mean, people tell this stuff to ChatGPT now, right? This is not just people telling the shrinks, or talk on online forums. This is people talking directly to an AI, and somebody can read that probably somewhere. And so the what people are feeling, what people are thinking, that can be measured, and then of course you can deduct, infer, or compute from that what would excite them, right? I mean, what would be something that really excites people and gets them moving in a certain direction, right? And there's been this division in society. One segment has increasingly become more scientific, and just more more driven in that way, and more more hardcore in that way, and the discipline that comes with it. And these people are being used, of course, or useful in corporations or for government. So there's this segment of the population, that they're being deemed useful. And then there's a growing segment of the population that does get measurably dumber. I mean, not necessarily purely in the form of IQ, but how they truly process information, how they apply logic outside of their home or their job. And so there's like this huge division. There's this huge division going on, and the bigger probability for me is it's gonna be a massive cult, and there's gonna be demands. There's gonna be demands. Things are gonna be demanded of the people. It's gonna be, this is not just free for you. This is not just free salvation. You're gonna pay for that, and it's not for everyone.
Well,
So
it's
that's what I
we're
expect.
in a very desperate time where things are changing, and a lot of unsettling. We've got bad leadership in many of the countries around the world. The leaders are no good. People don't think for themselves. The masses, well, they're just uh, running from one ideological fad to the next. Everything is in turmoil. And we see the war in Eastern Europe. We see the war in the Middle East. We see China mobilizing, preparing. We see America still trying to live in a kind of a fantasy world where we don't have to really make any sacrifices or prepare. And so that's what's coming. And the economic trouble because of the Strait of Hormuz being closed. That is going to affect us, not China,
Do you
because they're
think
getting oil.
do you think the Russians do you think the Russians and or the Chinese are going to claim first that they have something, or they have something more special, or they want to be attractive through those claims? Because they could
That's an
ensnare Western
interesting thing.
audiences. They could
If there was, yeah.
and lure Western people, Western audiences, if they claim to have something super special.
But they look. There's the book "Flying Saucers from the Kremlin," which I've read. Forget the guy's name who wrote it. Very, very interesting research. How the Russians were infiltrating all these UFO cults everywhere. Why? Because there's your psychotronic weapon. It's the way this plays in the West. They don't want it to interfere with the structure of their society. They do not want their society in upheaval because the aliens are going to rescue them from their poverty, right? They don't want that message to their own people. That's really disabling for them. They want that message to percolate through the West, where they're blaming our generals and our capitalists and our bankers and so on for any worsening conditions. So what they're working on now is to worsen our conditions through the wars that are being waged in the Middle East and Eastern
So
Europe.
it's more like this
And
line of the evil Western system is keeping free energy from the people and
right,
alien
look,
technology from the people.
the closing of the Strait of Hormuz is an attack on the petrodollar, on the currency of the Western trading system, and Trump has really contributed to that in his own way. And so the Chinese are allowed to come in and pick up oil in Kuwait and Iraq, and there's a secret pipeline where they can pick up oil from Iran, and the Iranians let the Chinese tankers through, and the Americans let the Chinese tankers through. So China's not being blockaded. Japan and Europe is, and America, there's like two systems. They're trying to break the back of the petrodollar. So once they break the petrodollar's back, they can play this disclosure thing. When people are unhappy and dissatisfied and there's not enough energy and there's gas rationing in California and prices, there's breaks in the supply chain because of the energy shortage, guess who they're going to blame? And guess who? Oh, look, there's free energy here. They've kept it from us. This is all just a game. When the real game is the Russians and Chinese at that choke point, urging on their Iranian allies.
Or do you think in the midst of an energy crisis and debt crisis, do you think some popular well-known technocratic person like Elon Musk or something, in coordination, of course, with other influential circles, do you think they're gonna come out with some fusion reactor and say, oh, by the way, disclosure, yeah, we built this thing based on crash landed alien craft, and we just
Elon Musk is never going to say that. No, I don't
or
think
somebody
so.
like this,
See,
and they're gonna say, "Oh, we have this thing, and this is solving our problem now."
the communist front organizations are rallying people to be against new energy projects here in the U.S. that we desperately need. They've been like in your country, in Germany, they cut off your energy. Your energy is expensive because of the active measures of the communists and their fronts and their allies, the Greens and the communists. They did this, and who profits? Cui bono. Who profits? It's the Russians, because then they can sell their oil and their gas to Europe and make good money. If they have competition from other sources of energy, they can't make that money.
I mean, it would be kind of interesting. I mean, it's just a little thought. I mean, if somebody let's just assume for a second, just for the sake of a little thought experiment, somebody deep down somewhere in the United States, um, like super hidden, like a new or even more secret Manhattan Project, somebody develops a new bomb, some anti-matter bomb or something that's really really advanced. Um, and then in this East-West conflict, then this new bomb gets used, and on top of using that advanced technology, they're saying we got this from the aliens. We got this from
From the
down
evil aliens,
spacecraft.
from the evil ones. Yeah,
Yeah,
the evil
because
aliens.
we're in league with the evil aliens or something, or we learned from
Yeah.
them, and we got
And
more stuff like
so
this.
you got to revolt against the American government, or you're going to be owned by the illegal aliens, the evil aliens, the evil illegal aliens
Yeah,
that have
yeah,
come to
yeah,
this
yeah,
planet
yeah,
without
yeah.
proper
Or
passport
we just
identification.
or we all have to be we all have to be slaves in some kind of system, to make the super defense system against the aliens. There's so
The
many ways you could,
patriarchy,
so many
patriarchy is so
ways,
evil.
yeah, so many ways where you could play this thing, right?
A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, right? Who needs kids? Who needs men? Who needs husbands? Go out there and make money. Put money in thy purse. Make money. Be an executive. Break that glass ceiling. Now, it's all ridiculous. I
Maybe
mean,
the Chinese, maybe the Chinese and the Russians are gonna. This is another little silly thought experiment. Maybe when things really heat up globally, then the Russians, the Russians and the Chinese may offer some sort of a deal to the West. Let's pretend we have an alien problem, and we come to an understanding. We're gonna have this. We're gonna split up the world, not really attack each other, and we're just gonna subdue the populations and tell them it's against the alien threat. Because if we make this East-West deal, it's going to be better than actually annihilating each other. So maybe the communists are going to try that one. So it's just so many ways you
you,
can
you
play this.
don't know. You don't know. There's been people that have worried. I mean, the Robertson, again, going back to the Robertson panel on UFOs back in the 1950s, they were concerned about how the Russians would use this subject. And I think it's not, the Russians and the Chinese can use this subject. Whether or not there are real extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, whatever, they can play this thing. They can make this thing work for their political benefit on the planet. We'll see. Their reputations are so ruined now. Russia's in particular. I'm not sure what they can do, but the Chinese still seem a little viable, using corruption to make things happen. And this anti-Semitism, it's the stalking horse for the Russians and the Chinese. This fake right wing that's emerged. This it's really not conservative. It's not patriotic. It's not even nationalistic, because anti-Semitism, you could testify to this in Germany. Hitler wasn't really a nationalist. That anti-Semitism was something aside from nationalism.
Yeah, and also
You know,
the whole underlying conspiracy mythology that started with the left in France. That was a
yes,
left wing,
that's right.
a huge
Anti-Semitism really
huge and
really
long
took
left
off in
wing,
France. Yes.
huge and long left wing socialist
Yep.
socialist media offensive or ideological offensive, and then it wasn't just that the extreme right was copying it. Some fell for it. Some just thought, "Oh, this sounds like a cool tool that we could use." It wasn't just stealing that or copying that. It was also that the communists or socialists, they realized at that time that they could not break these systems by themselves. They could not do it alone. They would need another force that was destructive, and that became the extreme right wing. So this was like this idea.
Well, as Hannah Arendt points out, that it's interesting in her book on anti-Semitism that it was really the decline of nationalism, that the national states, their decline into mass societies, that led to the emergence of anti-Semitism. That the phenomenon in Germany was really the degeneration of the nation state, which is what anti-Semitism is. And you see it here in America very clearly. Where are these people coming from? A lot of them are coming from the right, but we also see the strong Israel lobby on the left. They're very
Yeah.
strongly
Yeah,
anti-Israel
and also
and
there's
anti-Jewish.
like
Yeah.
Muslims have bought their way into Western society through that anti-Semitic conspiracy gateway, because it's just like it's an easy thing to do, right? You pay some influencers, you recruit them, and then they say these things, and you can offer them a safe exit, you can offer them protection. And then you just add up the pressure, pressure against Israel, pressure against the U.S. government. Just add more tension, right? It's an easy thing to do, and some Muslims they do have a lot of money for that, and it doesn't take that much money to amplify something like this, in the West, and it's like as I said in the beginning of this episode, I'm writing a book on how the United States really the United States came to be. Who were the dominating families? How did they do this? How did they progress? How did these planter, how they went from a planter business and trade business to the next stage of creating bigger industrial structures, and at what stage did they let in or integrate some German Jewish bankers? It's really something I think.
It wasn't under Hamilton. The original Bank of the United States was financed by Christian, domestic Christian merchants and wealthy people. Fisher Ames was one of the original Federalists. But the Dutch and British investors, they were not Jewish. The European investors in the Bank of the United States. So it wasn't Jewish. Sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry
It's
for
like
those people.
and also when it comes to when it comes to just the maintaining a structure.
It was later the Lower East Side bankers with Jacob Schiff. They were Jewish, but again,
Yeah,
he
but you
backed the
had
White
to.
Army and Kolchak. He didn't back the
Yeah,
Bolsheviks.
and there was some sort of an elitist system being built, because otherwise, you can't function, right? You would splinter and be victimized as a country. But this also, these developments, when you have interlocking families, some came from from the Netherlands, some came from other places. When you have some of these circles, some of these families, of course, when they are so hyper focused on winning, expanding, safety, and that's all they do. There's going to be pockets of evil, and there's going to be some families or some individuals who rediscover mystery cults and some of the crazy stuff, and so this is how bad things happen, and the mechanisms, especially in the past, the mechanisms were not there yet to catch this, to correct this, so it goes on from one generation to the other. This is how you have problems emerging. You do have some these pockets of evil emerging, and this is what we have to. And others, they may just go along with it. Others, they may just say, well, it's all about winning anyways. I don't want to be super evil, but let's just go along with everything. This is how you have these problems, and this is different from the conspiracy mythology that everything was a wonderland, everybody was good, everybody was so nice. But then came those demonic Jews and wrecked everything. This is not history, and this is not how humans work. And it's also this refusal to find the problems, really find the problematic individuals, fix them, find ways to even organize to fix them. Blast through go through all this, get through all this manipulation and misdirection. These are the hard tasks. It's much easier to just be a guy in front of a camera, getting money from whatever it is, Qatar or Iran or some cutouts, getting this money, getting paid every month on time, and just looking into a camera and saying, that people saying that they hate Israel, and and Jews are the root cause of every problem. That's easy to do once you have these backers, right? Once you have these some evil networks protecting you. That's so retarded and so simple and so simplistic, and it betrays a lot of so-called patriots. They don't know American history. They don't know the history of the country that they love and they want to defend, and they carry around with the flags and the patches and stuff, and they love America and love Americana, but apparently they don't understand American history that well, or they think
They don't know it.
they understand it enough. Oh, it was a wonderland, and then came those Jews and blah.
Yeah, well, that's what's going to happen anyway. I think we're at the 3 hour mark or more now, so
Yeah,
I think we
something like
better we better end now. Anyway, this has been Friends and Enemies. I'm Jeff Nyquist in the United States. My co-host Alex Benesch is in Germany, and we've been discussing all matter and sundry things of relevance. So thanks for joining us. Hope you will be with us next week. Visit my blog at jrnyquist.blog, and Alex will be posting this. Maybe I'll get it on my site after you post it. So
see you guys next
thanks
week.
for joining us. Yeah, see you next week.